everyone for coming in today. And I just want to say I talk to so many different kinds of people for work. But this is definitely a session I'm looking forward to because in the startup space, you hear about success stories. Hopefully, these gentlemen will share with us some of the secrets to scale up to this extent and some of the struggles they've faced as well. But to begin with, this is how we're going to do it. To begin with, each of the speakers are going to give a little presentation about something they want to focus on. This will be followed by a bit of Q&A with them and all of us. And we're going to keep ample time, we promise, for audience questions. So all of you will also have an opportunity to ask any of these speakers, whatever you want. We'll start with Vishal Gondal of GOQii, who's going to talk about India's opportunity to imagine health. Take it away, Vishal.
Thanks, Tamanna. Thanks, everybody. Always exciting to be here and talking about my favorite topic of scale. So, I thought that let me start by actually giving you the answer. I created a video which actually can, in 30 seconds, tell you how to scale the company. So let's start by playing the video. Wow. Well, you can see the problem with scale. Are we going to try another one? Well, while the video comes up,
इतने सारे केले क्यों लेके आए?
एक बढ़िया हेल्थ टिप मिली है कोच। पढ़ो।
सबसे पहले केला लो।
लिया।
उसके बाद उसे छीलो।
छील दिया?
उसके अंदर का केला फेंक दो।
फेंक दिया।
उसके बाद केले का छिलका खा जाओ। उससे मोटापा कम होके 6 पैक प्रकट होंगे। ऐसे कई लोग हैं जो फेक हेल्थ टिप्स पे विश्वास करते हैं। गधे मत बनो। हेल्दी बनना है तो कुछ सही देखो और सही सीखो। GOQii ऐप पर मेरे और लीडिंग हेल्थ कोचेस की वीडियोस देखो। इंडिया हेल्थ क्विज खेलो और करोड़ों रुपए के प्राइजेस जीतो। आज ही ऐप डाउनलोड करो और GOQii खिलाड़ी बनो।
So just like these fake health tips, I can tell you the internet is filled with all kinds of crap around how do you scale your business. And, you keep getting all these forwards and random quotes and all that. So when this actual panel was being put together, I was excited because finally, at least guys over here can hear from some people who have actually scaled their companies and not armchair activists who are just, dishing out tweets and, trolling other people who are working hard. So I think you should make the most of this because the people over here are all amazing at scale. So my journey of scale starts with what I tried to simplify, and I said, let me just put 10 points for you, all the 10 commandments. And I think the first and the foremost question which most people fail to understand is, who is your customer? And I think even before you start thinking of your journey of scale, identifying your customer is the most important thing. Because if you don't know who you are going after, there is just no way you can scale. And in a country like India, right, we say, oh, so many million mobile phones, so many credit cards, so many debit cards. People slice and dice information and create segments. And I'm sorry to say, a lot of the MBA types make business plans out of it. But the reality is that it is very, very important to not only identify your customer, but then figure out what is this customer seeking. So for example, in the case of GOQii, when you think of GOQii, you think our customers are athletic, these are people running marathons, these are people going to the gym, these are people who are very active. The reality is that our customer is a couch potato, which is 99% of the population. These are all people who want to be healthy, they are aspiring to be healthy, but they lack the motivation. So whenever we are crafting and we get so many, oh, let's launch a running app and let's do this and let's start a gym and let's do CrossFit. The reason we don't go there, because I know who I have created my product for. And having that crystal clarity changes your entire outlook on product execution and scale. Because suddenly, for me, this customer is sitting from Kashmir to Kanyakumari in every home. Whoever is eating samosa is my customer, versus going after a very niche. The second thing, which is also very important, is not find what is obvious to everybody. And the best example I give is doctor appointments. Everybody believes that, oh, I am going to solve the healthcare problem by making an app which will let you take an appointment. Wake up and smell the coffee, guys. That was never the problem. I don't think so that just because people could not get an appointment, they didn't become healthy. The reason is that the healthcare system is broken. And there is massive issue of trust in the system. Our survey put that 97% of Indians don't trust healthcare, including you. If you go to a doctor, you will ask 3 other people. So when you don't trust the system and you think that the reviews are gamed and everything is fake, trying to create another portal or another listing of doctors is not the solution. So when you start thinking of what is the unrecognized need, and we identified that. We identified the unrecognized need for healthcare is trust. People are not trusting the current healthcare system, which is where we are. And we said, we are going to take the premise of trust. And customer doesn't know. If you ask me, what do you need? They will not say, I need trust. A consumer will not be able to articulate it because it is unrecognized. Similarly, in each of your businesses, if you start figuring out that what is your customer not telling you, and that's what they need, is when you start really coming up to the system. And then it is very important to know who you compete with. People say, oh, who's your competition? And people are like, oh, you compete with Fitbit and Google and this and that and all kinds of people. And you know what? My number one competition is not any gym, any device, any app. My number one competition is laziness. And these are the 4 big culprits. Who is my competition? These are the people who are making our users lazier. Netflix aim, by the way, is not to let you sleep. And the biggest thing which impacts your health is sleep. So every time Netflix wins, I lose because I have failed to motivate somebody to sleep. Similarly, while Swiggy and Zomato are making their billions in valuation, the reality is that they are trying to feed crap junk food to customers, giving them infinity deals and double and triple offer for increasing their, let's say for ballooning their valuation. But at the same time, they are the single largest reason where the health of this country is getting destroyed. So if people who are funding or listening to this, I think it is high time that we don't let brands or companies with vested interests just destroy this nation by giving them junk food for profit. So when I think of competition, I think of these categories which I'm competing with, which is why if you look at what we built, we have videos, we have content, we have food, we have health products. Because once again, my customer is getting enticed by all these things. So it's a very, very different thing. So once you know you are competing with, and let me tell you, it's not your obvious competitor. We always think that my competitor is this, but the reality is your competitor is somebody who's taking the time away for what you wanted them to do your activity. The other important thing, and we again made this very, very conscious choice, is follow the money. It's very easy to start with free. The whole thing is, freemium model, we'll have millions of downloads and then we'll figure out how to make money. That's the classic scale. A lot of people talk about it. We actually did the opposite. What we said was, let us first figure out where people are paying money. That's a customer's way of voting and saying, I value this, and build those products and services. So we actually started with subscription at a very high end, and slowly, actually, our journey is the opposite. We started with subscription, and now we are moving towards free because we now have a clear path on what at scale customers are going to pay me for. Again, a very, very different strategy. But in today's market where every investor is going to ask you for unit economics and validation, You can't go and say, I have 20 million customers, but you know what, only 0.2% are paying users, and that too on a Sunday night at 8 p.m. So that doesn't work. The other important thing is that your customers today are your biggest advocates. And in my opinion, make them your best friends. So today, these are some of our early users of GOQii. And I can tell you, I have been to their houses. They have actually come and stayed in my house. And the reason is because I wanted to know my customer intimately so that I know exactly what they are doing. Because it is not just one slice of their life they are giving me. For GOQii, it was the entire lifestyle. So where all we could integrate. So very important, spend time with your customers, not just in a formal environment, but equally important to be in an informal environment. And the only metric which really we tracked from day zero is one, Net Promoter Score. If you do not have a product which people are not recommending to others, there is no point of putting money in scaling. And you can blow a lot of money on products with low Net Promoter Score. And unless you get this right, you're dead. So please focus on this one metric. And clearly, you need to have positive unit economics. Sorry, this is going all over. I think one of the things which is taking a big toll is unit economics. And unless you have the right economics, don't scale. Because having the wrong unit economics and scaling is going to create a much bigger problem, because before you realize, you'll have such a big hole in your pocket, and then you'll be scrambling to either get investor money or do something crazy to figure that out. So I think at the time of scale, it is very important to keep sure that your unit economics are well in place. And finally, it's also about making good friends. So we knew that we were not able to scale alone. So we partnered with some of the best brands. So we collaborated with insurance companies, banks, hospitals. So all the people who were actually in the healthcare system, their problem was trust. And my advantage was people trusted me. So we partnered with them and said, hey, we will help you bridge that gap. And the customer is more comfortable because now GOQii is fronting the relationship. And they know that there is no vested interest in that. And I mean, that's really where, I'm just giving you a scale of example. So if you really look at how we started, from year 1 to year 5, we were sub 5 million users, 1 million users. But now, this is actually from last year to this year is when we have started our scaling process. And like I mentioned, we are going to be hitting very close to 10 million users by March. And we are targeting in the next 3 years, that's a little further down. We are targeting in the next 3 years, 100 million people. And we have a clear path to do that because we have already laid all the things together. And of course, with scale comes influence. So you saw we got one of the top Bollywood stars. And once again, the intent here was today in health, in fitness, people want trust. And trust comes from authorities who can help. So at the time of scaling, it makes a big difference. So finally, what we've been able to do is, over the period of years, created an ecosystem which we can put together to scale. So it is just not one piece, it's this entire flywheel which we have created. And as this thing scales, it becomes bigger and bigger and bigger. And we couldn't have been luckier because this year, the biggest event for scale for our industry happened. And we were among the proud people to be part of that. As you all know that Prime Minister Modi has announced Fit India, Fit India, which is the biggest national level initiative to make people fit and healthy. And it couldn't have come to us at a better time. We are collaborating with them at every level, right from the village level to the district level, because our vision and the vision of the government is now exactly the same. That how do we make 130 crore people healthy? Thank you.
Thank you for that, Vishal. I think very interesting how you see laziness as your biggest competition. And of course, we'll quiz you more on that. I want to get on now Amrish Rao, who is going to be talking about what is fintech and why is it exciting. Amrish.
Thank you. You know, I've actually reached a point where while I admire founders and what founders do, I've actually reached a point where I don't remain in awe of founders anymore who can't build businesses which are profitable in year 5 or year 7 of their journey. I think profitability is a very important word. And in my 10 minutes talking about scaling businesses and creating businesses in fintech at large scale, I do want to talk about profitability. As all of us know, as a founder and as a CEO, the easiest job in this world is to grow revenues. Also, the easiest job as a founder and CEO is to become profitable, because what you can do is you can run a business which is this small and make it extremely profitable, or you can have a business which can scale really large and can never make profit. I think the trick is for a founder and a CEO to scale and to remain profitable. So I wanted to use my 10 minutes to just talk through some of my personal experiences, some anecdotes in terms of how I have tried to look at profitability while I've scaled businesses in 2 different journeys of my life. The first journey I talk about was when I was the CEO for a company called First Data, and First Data in about 2009, we acquired ICICI Bank's entire payments platform. I paid about $65 million to buy that business. I took 80% ownership, and that's the number, 65 million. And when I took ownership of that business was losing $3 million annually. In 2019, that business is now worth $1.5 billion. I, of course, left it in about 2013. It's worth about $1.5 billion and is now giving an EBITDA profit of about $70 million. That journey started off in 2009. By 2012, the business was profitable. And I want to share with you what I focused on, right? And I want to give you a very funny story. So when we decided to buy that business for $65 million, somebody forgot the fact that we needed to put some working capital aside. And real story. And literally 2 days before we put the final bid in, we had to scamper back to our investment committee and said, I just need some money for working capital because I'm buying this business, losing $3 million. I was given $5 million in those days as working capital. And this $1.5 billion business was actually built on $5 million of working capital. We never went back to the parent company or to ICICI Bank to look for any more funding. Now, those were the innocent days, right? Capital was scarce. We never really thought about how capital could be unlimited. And maybe that's why we got into some good habits there. So really, when you try and scale a business, think the mindset, work with the mindset which is capital is scarce. I need to be really, really careful with what I have with me. So $5 million of working capital created a significant business out there. Second, in your businesses, and I've seen this with multiple online businesses in India, you actually don't end up billing enough to your customer. There are so many slippages that we used to have in the payments business. I almost turned the business from a negative $3 million to a positive $3 million just by ensuring, are we billing enough to the customer? And you'd be surprised, in many of the startups that I look at, many of the businesses I look at, you just don't bill enough. There are so many gaps, revenue recognition, and ensuring that you are recognizing 100% of your revenues is a very, very important thing. That's one of the only things that I've focused on there. The third thing what we did in that business, I had the sales guy who one day came and sat in front of me and he said, and I'm sorry if you guys are from one of those businesses, but he came and sat there and he said, sir, I'm the most important sales guy in this company. And I said, why? Well, I manage lifestyle, I manage Shopper Stop, and I manage some other some other retailer. So I said, man, you must be really important. He said, yes, I am. And he told me something very, very interesting. He said, our business, First Data, used to get 5% of the revenues of Shopper Stop. However, that business was entirely loss making, which was contributing almost 10% of my losses. So 5% of Shopper Stop's business was contributing to 10% of my losses. So this was a meeting where he thought he's going to really impress me. And at the end of the meeting, I said, I just want to let you know, I actually want to cut down lifestyle, Shopper Stop, and I can't remember, there was a third retailer also, get rid of the business. And nobody could believe that I'm saying this with all seriousness, but I actually cut out those businesses because the same rule applies even to loss. 10% of your customers give you 80% of losses. Ensure that those 10% go. If you are not brutal enough to take them away, you'll never be able to scale your business profitably. So you have to cut out crap businesses, and crap businesses have to go out very, very early. The fourth one, I'll talk about it because I have it in my next journey also, which is have a very good understanding of where your business is and how your business is growing and manage that business. So I'll talk about it a bit more. So that was one part of my journey where I took a business from -3 to hugely profitable while growing it at scale. The second journey is my startup journey. I used to be the owner of a company called Citrus Pay, got acquired by PayU. And, just when we were being acquired, the buyers actually turned around and told me saying, "Hey, Amrish, I just have some news for you. We actually want you to become the CEO of our company." So while there was immense pleasure on the fact that we had exited, and this was in 2016, and we were ready to party, I did spend an entire evening thinking to myself, saying, hang on. So what happened out here? So I have exited a business, but I have now inherited a business which is losing 25 crores a month. Is my life happy or is my life really messed up? And I can tell you the life was really messed up, right? So there was no parties, there was no, yachts that I got onto, right? It really was, how do you take a business which was losing 25 crores a month and what do you do with it? And in exactly two years' time, 24 months' time, we took a business which was losing 25 crores and took it to break even. We do about $2 billion of volumes on a monthly basis. We just got valued at somewhere in the region of $2 billion for the India asset only. And I believe that was all done on the fact that while we grew, we also took our business profitable. And that was a very important milestone. How did we do that? Step number one, we basically cut out all those businesses which were fancies of us founders. And us founders, we have all of these fancies. So while we are doing 3 rock solid businesses, we also have 4 businesses which we really love to do as side businesses and businesses which are really interesting to us. So one of the businesses that we had, and I'm happy to talk about it, was we actually wanted in 2016 to launch a credit card. Now, it's got nothing to do with all the credit cards which are being launched in India. I don't have an opinion about that. I'm talking about my business. In 2016, we wanted to launch a credit card. And my thinking on this was, what is that these bankers who have been working on it for so many years and they have not been able to make the credit card business profitable, we suddenly are going to turn up and make that business profitable. I said, if this organization has to be made profitable, I have to cut out those businesses which are my favorite businesses, which might have money, might not have money. And you don't have to do it for all the time. When you are growing one part of the business at a crazy pace, ensure that you're not throwing away money in those businesses where you can't put 100% of your time. So we did make that effort of cutting out all of the founders and CEOs' favorite side projects. So that was one thing that we did. Second thing was, ended up with 1,200 people in our organization. And those 1,200 people, as we realized that we are cutting out businesses, the number of people in the organization also went down to about 800. So one of the things that you've got to figure out is how many of your good people are working on good projects, which are giving you good revenues and good profitability. And those guys who are really working on some fun projects, which might not have immediate impact, you really need to have a hard look at that. I did a lot of that, ended up from a 1,200 people organization going out to 800 people. I got a lot of calls from the press asking me saying, did you just get rid of 300 or 400 people? And the answer was no, we did not get rid of anybody. We actually got rid of those businesses which we felt were not doing very well for us. So that was second. And the third piece was, and which is a very, very important piece, was having a hawk eye on how your business is trending, understanding your business on literally on a day-to-day basis, which says where it is going. We used to have a favorite discussion within the senior management and senior leadership is that if we don't know our numbers, the last month numbers, if we don't know it immediately, then there's something wrong. We are not doing this business very well. We just got into this habit of discussing numbers, over a beer, over a coffee, just over some simple conversations. And as we did that, we realized that that culture went across the organization. Everybody started to focus on numbers. Look, guys, don't get me wrong. I'm not standing out here and saying that you've got to build a business only when it is profitable. I'm not saying that at all. All which I'm saying is there is a runway, there is a time beyond which it makes absolute sense to make your business profitable, scale your business with profitability. I've done it, created significant value out of it. It's a fun thing to do.
Thank you, thank you. That was enlightening and brutal. Huh? Thank you so much. I have Rajesh Yabaji next of Blackbuck, who is going to talk about using data to connect the dots. Thanks, Raj.
Yeah, I'm, I think, audible. Yes. Good afternoon, guys. My name is Rajesh, and I think one very subtle thing which I think all of us are doing is very respectfully ignoring the topic which you're saying, because none of us really remember that when this topic essentially came to us. So I thought I'll just confront that. I saw that Amrish do it very pleasantly. So, sorry? Yeah. So guys, I think, we're just going to share our stories. And Amrish, thanks so much for, the tidbits which you shared. I think there's a lot of learning. I'll probably catch you offline on some of those things. Yeah, so I think I will just, walk you guys through my 4 years of building Blackbuck. Blackbuck is basically, a company in a B2B space in trucking, which is one of the very unsexy sort of economies. Did not found the company, more with an incident where, let's say, there was a evening, there was a winter in Paris, it's all snowy, could not get a cab, and then I found an Uber, right? It's not that story. I was a logistics guy in ITC Limited, was a professional, worked there for about 5 years, was doing cutthroat cost reduction efficiency projects, and found out that whatever we did at a very small scale, we could sort of scale that for the country, right? So, and the starting courage was more around saying that, I'm the supply chain manager of ITC, right? The max will be probably for 10 companies. That's the lowest essentially, we can get. And sort of that gave the spirit to sort of say that, okay, let's start up. So just with a sort of a round of, count, understanding how many people here are like entrepreneurs, started up or about to found companies, with just a show of hands. Okay, great. So that's 30-40%. So yeah, so I think I just wanted to calibrate my talk in terms of, with whom I'm speaking to. So guys, I think, it's been, a ride which is there are some days where they're you're punching it out in the aisle in the office saying that, you've discovered the most important thing and in the world, nobody knows it. Those Eureka moments happen. And there are times across the last 5 years where, you would just want to cover your blanket and sleep, right? So I think, it's been that journey. And I think as a founding story, as a scaling story, it's important to sort of, get used to that. I think that's probably, if you ask me today, I think that's probably as a person self, right? That's the biggest challenge from a scaling perspective, right? Because you start off with a dream, you start off with a journey, and the entire world out is nothing but uncertain, right? And everything keeps changing, right? What you imagined about your market, what you imagined about what profitability you will make, what you imagined about in terms of the effort you will take to scale, right? I think all of that gets a huge sort of a churn and a twist, right? When you essentially start up. So I'm going to structure my talk in 2 parts, right? I think one part is the early part of, scaling the company. Another part is more the 10x part. So talking a little bit about Blackbuck, we are a company in about 2 geographies today, India and Europe. Europe, we more, define it as one market. We do trucking marketplace. We help truckers fill their capacities very effectively, help them make more money, help shippers get their truck as efficiently as possible, right? And We are a bunch of close to 3,000 people in a span of about 4 years. And we've got good people who are backing us in terms of the company's growth. And we are spread all over the country. In India, about close to 500 cities, and in Europe, close to about 5 cities till now. So I think the entire early part of founding up, I think my biggest sort of learning by interacting with people around me in terms of co-entrepreneurs and myself has been, I think, just figure out your right motivations to start up, right? Because there are many reasons why people start up, right? I think the lousiest I have heard is that I want to be my own boss. Because it actually works reverse, because you start reporting to the 3,000 people of the company, right? So it's literally the truth, right? So I think the motivation of really starting up in terms of the core problem you're solving, being very clear with it, really understanding the market well. And one of the biggest complaints of VCs nowadays is that Indian entrepreneurs, feel it uncool to share a P&L and a projected statement when they ask a question when they're pitching, right? So I think it's all fair. I think you're building a business, you're asking people to invest money in your company, you are solving a problem which is core to you, right? And that has essentially to be vetted well and should have sort of a very comprehensive perspective, right? I think that's point number one. Point number two of scaling in very early phase is that, I have also attended multiple of these conferences, right? I think a lot of what we talk about is like, in hindsight, how we stitch the dots, right? I think for me at least, a very less of that has directly worked, right? Which means each one of you is going to have your own journey, right? Every business we have built within Blackbuck had its own journey, had its own scaling mechanism, and you keep discovering truths which are, truths for you, right? So I think I would more say in the early phase of things, contextualize things really well. Whatever Amrish said, hear his story, right? But what's really important is that, when you're contextualizing that to your own, your own environment, just be, more smart and more probably believe in your gut and inner voice, right? In the early phases, because there is no data, right? What you only do is smell opportunities. You have very finite money to bet into, right? You might be starting off with your own savings, etc., right? So I think that's important. Third part in the early stage which happens is that you just go at the problem statement and you keep solving, right? And what happens is that, assuming that the problem statement you're solving is gold out there, there's a lot which glitters around it, right? Which Amrish described as, fantasy projects of the management, right? So be very clear about whether, all that glitters is not gold, right? So whatever is glittering, right? If you start moving into different directions, and this happens very much at the early stage, you typically lose focus and you end up doing nothing, right? Have focused problem solving, right? Be very clear in the market we are in. If you're confident that that market is enough, just be there. So we operate in a trucking market of about, $150 billion, right? A lot of people used to feel bad that we are operating only in a TAM of 90. 90 is too big. We're still less than 1%, right? So I think, because if you can get into part truckload, you can get into express, you can own trucks, you can do cold chain, you can do many things, right? We don't do any of that. We don't do, one of our investors is Flipkart. I've not even done a single shipment of Flipkart till now. Because Flipkart is e-commerce and my service is not e-commerce, right? So whatever is glittering, don't believe that's gold, right? Just focus on your core and and early stage, it's a little bit of, even more like an art to really sense opportunities, feel it more, go by gut is what I would say, right? I'll pause there on the more early part, right? Moving into the scaled phase sort of, is a transition into a completely different zone where the only rule which works is that whatever worked yesterday will not work tomorrow, right? It's basically saying that something which worked for the business at 100 people scale is not going to work at a scale of 500 people, right? So typically in people, it follows a power of 3 law, right? 3, 9, 27, 81, 243, 729. All of these are more, times when the company typically needs a very different way in which people relationships evolve, leadership relationships evolve, or the company essentially evolves and metamorphoses, right? So I think that's really important and has been more core of my learning and has also been probably the core of a lot of failures at Blackbuck, right? So we as a company still lose money, right? We have a very healthy top line, right? I think, which is great. But operationally, we have always tried to make money, but at a very company PAT level, we always lose money, right? So I think that's point number one in terms of what works, what worked yesterday is not going to help you tomorrow because you need to continuously evolve when you're scaling. Whenever you go 3x, it keeps scaling, right? The second journey is all about, whenever we have like done anything really well at a small unit scale and tried scaling that using a lot of promotions and discounts, right? It's really important to call out two parts here, right? One is whatever you're building up, right, on incentives and scaling, it will definitely scale because you're putting money. You're selling something cheaper. You're selling something which is, let's say, discounted, right, on both the sides of the marketplace. What's really important is that when you pull that incentive out, right, does that sustain? Does that scale sustain, right? And what I define it, I learned it from one of the very respected people in the ecosystem. He calls it as empty caloried growth, right? The growth happens, there are calories, but there is no muscle in it, right? There's no protein in it. When you pull out the entire incentive, it completely crashes down, right? So it's really important when you're scaling to really understand what you're building is a empty calorie growth or it's actually has real muscle in it, because we have failed in multiple times. Like I think there is a couple of efforts of ours in the on-demand marketplace. Like we definitely burnt money, we scaled higher. And then when we wanted to make money, the scale used to essentially disappear, right? So I think that's important to really understand, like whether you're funding something which is getting built or you're just funding some, absolute BS, right? So, and when you are doing these activities, right? So this is too direct in terms of investing in scale. A lot of parts where you keep investing and burning money, you need to understand whether it's an investment or it is a cost. And it's typically a mirage until you get there. You are looking at something, you're putting money, and then you're like, okay, I'll get there because this will help me achieve this. But when you get there, you realize, oh my gosh, this was cost. Because it's not going to, every $100 I put in, it's not going to give me $20 every year from now onwards. It's 100 is just gone, right? So it's really important to have that mindset, right? To really evaluate every dollar which you're putting in, right? The other important part on scaling is, about building teams. I think at the scale phase, people is very important because at the end of the day, we are a services company. But for us, people design frameworks. People are the ones who are scaling territories, expansions, right? So at a growth stage, when you're hiring for leadership, I think it involves huge amount of selling. The amount of selling you do to VCs to invest money, I think hiring for people has the equal amount of effort, right? I think that's superbly important. Scaling capital is again another thing, which is basically after you are off the series A, B, C stages, I think it's really important to prove unit economics at scale. And if you do not, then I think post that you don't have your company, right? So it's really important to lay emphasis on profitability of the business model from day one, ensuring that profitability comes in largest part of the business, large parts of the businesses, by mid-stage sort of scale, which is BC. Otherwise, you broadly will reach in a phase where you'll have a high burn per month, and then like you'll not have your company like in few months, right? So, most important point, summarizing, I think if you guys are part of the leadership teams, management teams, and the founders who are building these startups, right? Many times, like the person themselves becomes sort of the limitation, right? So it's really important to evolve fast. You are scaling a rocket ship, and the people who are leading this have to scale essentially faster than that, right? So it's really important to keep introspecting, right? Keep understanding and use a lot of mentors and people around you to check in and understand how essentially you're doing, right? So I think my method there is, like, I have like a lot of people who have been through this journey of entrepreneurship, right? And my co-CEOs of building companies today, right? I think we all check in into really understanding, how we are scaling, how we are doing things. So it's really important to keep developing and keep scaling much faster than company. Otherwise, you will become the limitation of why the company is essentially not scaling, right? So those are like, guys, a couple of my learnings. I hope I've been able to do justice to the 10 minutes of your time here. Thank you.
Thanks, Rajesh. Okay, a lot of points, and you made a good point about people trying not to talk about what the subject is, but that's what I'm here for. So we'll come to that after everyone's presentation. Varun,
Okay.
up next. And Varun, of course, from Urbanclap is going to be talking about how the future is hyperlocal.
Hi, thank you for this opportunity. I'm just going to talk about my lessons from building Urbanclap, and how to scale a business 10x consistently. Quick understanding of the audience. How many of you have actually used Urbanclap? Good, that makes me happy. This conversation around 10x scaling of businesses, the theme of this conclave, I think is extremely important. All of us have in front of us the largest value creation opportunity in this country, largest opportunity any of us has ever seen. E-commerce, which only started in the country in the year 2009, and in 2013 grew to about $5 billion in transaction value, has grown 10 times since then. Last 6 years, e-commerce has grown 10 times, and over the next 5-10 years, it's going to grow another 3 to 4 times. And that's fundamentally because of all the growth around us. Two things are happening. People in India are rising in terms of their incomes. Simple stat here, households who have more than 10 lakh rupees in income, who we all should consider our first customers, are going to double in India. And all of these people have smartphones. So they're all ready to buy products and services in very new ways. Which means for everybody in this room, every large sector in India, whether it is retail, healthcare, education, mobility, food, services, everything is up for disruption. Everything is up to be reimagined, and multiple billion-dollar companies are to be created in the next 10 years. And that's why 10x scaling as an attitude, 10x entrepreneurs, 10x teams are very relevant in India. These are some of the things which brought me back from the US, where I was working in 2013, and over the last 5 years, we've been able to build Urbanclap. What is Urbanclap? We are a home expert service provider, and we provide at your home two kinds of services. Wellness services, so beauticians, massage therapists, haircuts, and services for your home. Electricians, AC technicians, home cleaning, painting. This is the entire bouquet of services that we provide. Our vision is to empower millions of service professionals worldwide to deliver experiences at home like never seen before. And in the last 5 years, we've been able to make significant headway towards this vision. Today, every month, about 7.5 lakh customers like you guys use Urbanclap for their personal as well as home care needs. This same number used to be 70,000 2 years ago and 7,000 4 years ago. So we've been able to scale 10 times in the last 2 years and 100 times over the last 4 years. But this is also only getting started. We imagine a world over the next 4 years where every urban family in India will be getting their personal and home services only through our platform. And over the next 8 minutes, I want to share with you some learnings of how we got here and how we think we're going to continue to scale our business another 100 times over the next 5 to 6 years. The first thing that's been my biggest learning over the last 5 years is create a 10x better consumer experience. We'll all start by picking large industries, large markets, and we'll say, hey, this industry is going to change. The way the industry is going to change is if you imagine a future 3-4 years out, which is enormously different than today, and you create that future for your consumers. So when we started, the common feedback that we heard from consumers, and we started with women, was that beauty services are a pain in India. In today's traffic, especially in Bangalore, going to a beauty salon is insanely painful. You get stuck in hours on the road itself. Working women have only that 1.5 days in the week free, and they don't want to spend that time outside their home. Unless you're going to the top most expensive salon, quality of services in India is very dodgy because the professionals are not well trained. The products that are being used on yourself could be mixed, could be non-genuine. And we decided to fix all of these things in one go. We said, beauty services will now come to your home. You will not have to step out to get any service, whether it's a facial, a haircut, or a massage. It will all come to your home. Never done in India at scale. Next, we said all of the services delivered anywhere in these top 15 cities of India will be of the same top-notch quality, consistently delivered each and every time. And the products that get used will be high quality, original, and affordable. So we set out to solve 3 problems for the consumers, and we said all of these 3 have to be solved at the same time for the experience to be 10x better. You have to give best-in-class quality. It has to be convenient, on demand, in the home of the consumer, and it has to be made available at affordable prices. Doing one of these is hard. Doing all three is extremely hard. But you have to do that if you want to create a 10x scaling company. Otherwise, you spend a lot of your money on discounts and you spend a lot of your money in acquiring customers. 10x growth only happens when your consumers love your product enough to use it themselves again and again and to tell many, many more people around it. So if I take any of these things out, if I provide you great service and I said I'm going to provide it in your home, but I'm going to charge 5,000 rupees for it, there will be very few takers. Again, if I said it is going to be affordable and it's going to be good, but you'll have to book weeks in advance, as many people would not be using Urbanclap. So you have to solve all the problems that your consumer is telling you at the same time and create a significantly better experience than what they see today. And the same thing we did for all home and repair services. Again, common problems in India. Whenever anything breaks, finding a good person to come home can sometimes take days and weeks. And when that person is in your home, they can charge you completely absurd amount of money, depending on how good your house is, depending on the clothes that you wear. And if you're in an emergency, you need your tap fixed, they're going to charge you that much more. So no transparency in pricing, hard to find people. And again, we said we're going to change all of this. And today on Urbanclap, if you want to get anything at your home fixed, you can book for a service professional to come within 2 hours. The price is going to be fixed, transparent, as per a rate card. And we give you a 3-month guarantee on any work that's done. Again, significantly advanced 10x different consumer experience than what happens today. And that is the minimum bar. You have to radically transform the industry that you're in if you want millions and millions of people to use your product or service. And again, when we think about today, 7 lakh people using Urbanclap every month, and how do we take that to 70 lakhs and then 7 crore services every month? Somewhere, each of these 3 things have to be improved. People who are not using it today do find it expensive, or they don't trust the quality enough, or they find it too hard to book on our mobile app. Again, you have to fix the same basic things and continue to improve your customer experience every year if you want your company to grow. Second lesson that I learned was doing 10x scaling and creating a 10x better consumer experience in India requires a company to do lots of very hard things. So when we started, these goals were clear. We went out to the well-known beauty companies and home care companies of India, and we said, we're going to create a marketplace. You guys need consumers, consumers need you. We will create a marketplace where you provide good quality on demand and at affordable prices. And for the first 6 to 9 months, nothing worked as per plan. People on Urbanclap were also reaching late, quality was inconsistent, consumers were complaining, and we realized that the entire industry of home and personal services is quite broken. When we as a consumer pay 1,000 rupees to a beauty salon or to a AC technician coming from LG, the money that reaches the service professional is less than 100. And majority of the money is kept by middlemen. These middlemen who keep most of the money don't invest in quality and training of our service professionals and don't pay them enough. That's why all service professionals in India, outside the ones who are on Urbanclap, are extremely unprofessional, late, and inconsistent in their quality. So we realized this industry needs to be completely reimagined and built from the ground up. We took the hard decision to say, we will eliminate the middleman and we will create what is now fashionably called a full stack business, where the individual service professionals will be transformed to become micro entrepreneurs, and we will have to do very many hard things to create this business and create this experience, but we will do that. We standardized hundreds of services to say what should be the price, how should the service be done, how do we deliver quality consistently each and every time. We opened training institutes because we realized quality in India is poor because all of these professionals have learned on the job and have never received formal training. So today we run more than 100 training institutes all over the country where 1,000 to 2,000 professionals get trained and graduate every year to join every month to join the Urbanclap workforce. When we had to get these people to start their own businesses, they had no savings because they were always earning 10,000-15,000 rupees per month only. So we had to give them business loans to buy their tools, buy their cosmetic kits, buy the massage bed, and get started. Again, the existing banking system in India did not want to even touch these people. So we gave loans on our own. In fact, we opened bank accounts for majority of the people on our own. We provide insurance to them, and we run on the Urbanclap system their own bank, where they make money, they can get loans, they can pay off loans as they earn more on the platform. And to ensure that every service professional every day carries the right products to the customer, we started our own internal e-commerce company. And we opened warehouses all over the country to make sure these professionals can sit at their home and order products and then take it to your homes to make sure every service is well delivered. None of these things, when we started in the company in 2015, was clear. We thought we were building technology to create a marketplace which is just going to grow on its own. And all of these hard things had to be figured out and done one by one. And in some sense, these are multiple companies within one company, where we do training, where we do warehousing, where we provide loans, where we do standardization, and all of this gets weaved in together with technology. Because as my previous speaker said, you have to do all of this for the customer, but you also have to run a profitable company. So how do you do all of this lean and low cost is the beauty of our business model, because it all runs on technology. There is no Urbanclap people involved in doing a majority of these things. Why do all of these hard things happen? Why do professionals who are on Urbanclap go from being employees and going to one workplace every day to living a hard life of a micro entrepreneur? It's because Urbanclap creates a path-breaking change in their own lives. So all of these 25,000 people today earn on average 35 to 40,000 rupees per month, which is 3 times more than what they were earning before. Many of them even earn upwards of 1 lakh, the ones who are working really hard. And that has helped them complete all of the dreams they ever thought of. Buying homes, cars, appliances, sending their kids to English medium private schools and colleges. All of their dreams have been realized, and that helps the company grow 10x, because that creates a community of Urbanclap partners who are committed to growing the company, who will never leave, who in fact get their friends, family, other professionals to leave whatever they're doing and join Urbanclap, because they say, hey, stop whatever you're doing, because this company is going to make your future. This company is going to help you create and bring all of your dreams to reality. So when you create 10x improvement in their lives by doing all the hard things that require to be done, then you create this positive pull for your company, which take things forward. The last thing is creating a 10x team and a 10x culture. Of course, creating a company that is going to grow 10x and 100x every few years requires a fantastic set of individuals and a team to come through. I think what is even more important is creating the culture that helps each of these folks perform to their best. And a few Urbanclap culture pillars help us do that. First is basic, where every decision in the company is evaluated with the basic principle of whether it helps the business grow and whether it helps improve consumer experience. And if it does not do any of these two things, then we don't do it. There is no third priority in the company. Second, there's a culture of ownership where we help these ambitious, talented individuals who are part of our team do some of the best work of their lives, which means you give them ownership to run their parts of the business with independence and take decisions on their own and really feel like they are building the company and they're not building your company. And the third is our concept around Reimagine, where we say if you have to scale 10x, if you have to create 10x better experience, you have to reimagine the world every 1 to 2 years, which is something the previous speakers also alluded to. So we reimagine the world as we see it. We even reimagine things that we have ourselves created, and we don't mind breaking our own existing businesses and business models if that's what it's required to scale further 10x. And it's very simple anecdote. 2 years ago, we had two parts of our business equal in revenue. One was giving good customer experience, the other was not. We today have shut down that business over the last 2 years, and the business that was doing well has continued to grow. So reimagining your own self, your own company, and disrupting things that you have built to scale 10x is equally important. So my 3 learnings: create a 10x better experience, do the hard things required to really fundamentally build a company from the ground up, and create a 10x culture around yourself. Thank you.
Thanks, Varun. Fantastic. And yes, I'm one of those people who put their hand up. Urbanclap has definitely been a huge revolution. I will ask you later which one you shut down. But for now, Clint is, of course, from SugarCRM, is going to talk about competing in the CRM market.
Great, thank you very much. It's my pleasure to be here today. I arrived in India yesterday, and so hopefully jet lag is doing okay at the moment. So it was 15 years ago that myself and 2 of my friends started SugarCRM open source project. And over the course of the years ahead, grew it to be the largest commercial open source business applications company in the world. We have tens of thousands of companies around the world with millions of business professionals running their business on top of SugarCRM today, customers in over 80 countries. It's been an exciting journey these last 15 years, but it's a journey that for me started even before then. And so I'll share some of that story with you here today. Everybody knows Elon Musk, right? Of course we know Elon. SpaceX, actually a customer of ours. It's a fantastic customer to have. About a year ago, Elon Musk was at Stanford Business School giving a presentation to a group of students there, and he was asked the question, what's it really like to be an entrepreneur? So we saw hands earlier. Who's an entrepreneur in the room, right? Started your own business. Here's his answer. It's like chewing glass and staring into the abyss. It's a pretty dramatic answer. But if you started your own business, you've chewed glass and you've stared into the abyss, haven't you? You've had those moments. You've had those moments, haven't you? So I'll tell you a little bit about my journey of chewing glass over these years. My journey started back in the early 1980s. My father started a software business in 1981. That's a pretty revolutionary idea back then. And he built a business around the idea of private bulletin board systems. Remember those back, for those of us old enough to remember BBCs and such back in the day? BBS and everything around it. He built a private bulletin board system for connecting public service agencies with media. Time moves forward. I'm helping him test software. I'm stuffing envelopes. I'm at conferences like this, manning the booth as a teenager. And my dad was my hero, right? He was doing something really awesome, very different. And along the way, he says to me, son, when the day comes that you want to start your own business, you got to think to yourself, do you want to build a lifestyle business or a growth business? I didn't know what the hell he was talking about, right? A lifestyle business, a small business built around you, a business built around your ego, a business built around your hard work, or a growth business where you check your ego at the door and you focus on growth by bringing in investors. Now, my dad talked a good game. He said that's what he was setting out to do, but he was, and still is, a man with a big ego, and always had a hard time recruiting people that were smarter than him. So this is my first lesson in business. How do you really recruit people who are better than you? Because that's one of the age-old lessons in business. Hire people who are better than you. But how do you actually do that? Well, as an entrepreneur, the very first step is to check your ego at the door and convey a culture of the company first. It's a very hard thing for people like us who are entrepreneurs to do because we're big egos ourselves, right? But check ego at the door and hire people who are better than you. Time moves forward. It's 1989, and my dad has to shut down the business. He goes into bankruptcy. What happened? Email. Killed his business. Or he just didn't think about shifting the business. Technology waves, technology changes, right? He could have shifted his business to a newsletter type service. He could have embraced the burgeoning internet a few years later, but instead he shut down the business because he couldn't imagine how to pivot and take advantage of technology change. So fast forward 20 years later, I'm starting my own company. I'm starting it with two of the smartest men I've ever met. Time moves forward. We're growing. We've brought on investors. We raised our first 2 million, our first 10 million, 50 million. We raised $120 million at SugarCRM. Over the course of the last 15 years, lifetime revenue of over 500 million. Last year, we sold the business to private equity. It's been a pretty exciting ride. What's the most important key to success there? Hiring great people by checking your ego at the door. Why am I still with my company 15 years later? Checking my ego at the door. Hiring great people, focusing on the company's success. Along the way, we've been the first open source CRM company. We've been a mobile CRM company. We've been a social CRM company, and now we're becoming an AI CRM company, taking advantage of each of those waves of technology and being willing to pivot and focus on the future. If we didn't do that, we wouldn't be here today. Now, the last idea that I'll share with you as we go through this little journey of chewing glass together is as you hire these great people, remember your personality. You're an entrepreneur. You see big pictures. You're probably a little erratic in your focus at times. You're jumping from idea to idea. And you're going to hire people who bring focus, who bring process to your company, right? Those are some great people to hire. But you need to be thoughtful about the process that they put into the company, because I've seen this happen over and over and over again. Too much process brings too much complexity. As an entrepreneur, you need to be focused on not just scaling up the business by hiring great people and putting the right processes in place, but also being willing to strip away those processes when they get in the way. This is the number one key to success that I've found at SugarCRM is look at your business through the lens of your customer. Look at the business through the lens of your customer and strip away every piece of complexity that creeps in. Because it'll happen. It'll absolutely happen. So those are some of my thoughts on how to scale your business, grow your business, hire great people, check your ego at the door, embrace change, don't fight change, and lastly, strip away complexity. And with that, turn it back over to you and see where we go next in this panel.
Thank you, thank you, thank you to all of you. Those were amazing. So we're going to keep this open if anyone wants to come in with a point, but just some interesting observations from what you guys said. And Vishal, let me come to you first. And one thing that struck me from your presentation was when you talked about not giving away too much for free. And the reason I asked that is because a lot of the startup space that we see, especially customer facing and retail, is focused on subsidizing that experience for the customer. You talked about Swiggy, Zomato. I think a lot of these companies are subsidizing urban existence to some extent, from your food to your shopping.
Creating a future unhealthy nation.
Yeah. So, but can you really scale up beyond a point in this kind of an environment without giving something for free, especially in a market which knows that the new guy is going to give me something for free? Your customers know that.
See, like I said, right, I mean, he just mentioned about empty calories, right? Yeah. The same concept. Free is the easiest thing. But you know what? People download free apps, and on day one, 97 to 98% people uninstall free apps. So actually, free has the least amount of value. In fact, people, if they are even paying 10 rupees to use your app or service, they are more likely to be retained and more likely to engage with it. So I think gone are the times when we thought, if I'm giving it for free, everybody will take it. On the contrary, I think what is more important is to ensure that whether it's a free or a paid experience, you have three important things. One is engagement. Second is consumer deriving a benefit, because they may engage and still not find any benefit out of it. And the third thing is, how can you make your customers your viral agents? If your customers in today's world are not getting you other customers, you are not creating a business. And I think the whole old school of marketing, of spending in performance marketing and acquire user, and you keep doing that, that is a zero-sum game. Money only goes to Facebook and Google. They are the only people getting rich. In today's business, build a product where your customer will say, I love your product, and I'll get 10 other people. And I can tell you that, sorry, Google is listening to my phone. And I can tell you that Urbanclap is one of those products where, a lot of times when consumers do experience it, and I know many people in my family who have used it, tell it to others. They're not spending money on crappy ads anywhere.
Yeah, disclaimer, I have used GOQii. I'm one of your very early users, and I've used Urbanclap as well. And, Varun, let me come to that point you made about building such a big ecosystem in scale. I mean, you have the warehouse, you're training the guys, all of that. Does that come in the way sometimes of profitability? Because it is, in a sense, contradictory to the approach that, Rajesh spoke about choosing what areas you want to be in. I mean, he's in a space where you can really spread. So is there a toss-up there? Can you still manage to be profitable at scale if you diversify that much?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's important to, one, think long-term about your business. You can't do that from day one, and we didn't have all of these capabilities on day one. Over time, as things were working, we continue to think long term and really ask the question of what will matter to the consumer, what is really important to create good customer experience, and one by one started investing in those layers. So when you think about training or supplying products as two large investments that we make, if we don't make those investments, somebody else has to, because you can't send untrained people to the customer's house, and you can't send them with bad products. So these are things which are fundamental and have to be done in order to create good experience. We just realized that today nobody is doing it well. So if we do it, then we first win the customer and are able to scale, and over time we create a lot more, in fact, defensible business. When it comes to profitability, on some of these core pillars of the business, we think if we do it ourselves, we'll actually be more profitable than to get somebody else to run the business, run that piece of the business for us. If I'm getting somebody else to train my professionals, then I'm either going to get worse off outcome than doing it myself, or I'm going to have to pay more. I can't get great training as good as I can do it myself and also pay less for it. So I think it's important to figure out what are the things that the consumer really values, and in those areas of your business, over time at least, you have to build strong core capabilities, and they will not come in the way of profitability because they are required to be done. And I would just say, do them in a lean manner. Use technology wherever you can.
In a business like yours, I think two things which would be very tough is quality control at the end of the day, what that quality of service is, because it could be subjective. And also in the Indian context, how do you ensure that your service people who go in, they don't get poached by the individuals? I'm sure it's something you say that I'll call you separately and I'll pay you less and you come to me. Is that something you face?
No, not really. I think we actually don't see that. It's very counterintuitive. But today we have 25,000 professionals who go to homes, who go to like 40,000 homes a day, and we deliver quality consistently because we really break down the service experience to say, send the right person with the right training and the right tools and products. So you nail these individual parts, and every experience is going to be good. And of course, there's constant improvement basis consumer feedback. On your point on consumers and professionals then brokering on their own. We speak to enough of our customers and professionals, and we don't see that happening, because think from the professional standpoint, they are through this platform making more money than they ever imagined in their life. And on the platform, there is always more jobs to be done. So there's infinite money that they can make. Nobody is limiting the amount of money to be earned. And through the platform, when they go to the customer, they are treated more professionally, with more respect. They're in a uniform, they're representing a company, so nobody asks them to wait, nobody negotiates with them. Being a professional and representing Urbanclap is a big deal for them, as opposed to going directly. And I think the same holds for us as customers. We intuitively realize that you call the same professional on your own, and you are likely to lose the professionalism that you are seeing. So having Urbanclap in the middle is really important for that quality of service to be 5-star.
Tamanna, one of the things I've seen through all of our presentations as a common theme is a way to scale is by building an ecosystem around your company, by building a platform, by helping others make money, right? And I've heard that in every one of our presentations. And as I think back to how we scaled as a business, 10x, 50x over the last 15 years, it's our network of partners, implementation partners who've built extensions on top of our software, who've implemented our software for other customers, and for you're helping people achieve their dreams by giving them their first business that they can run with a set of skills that maybe they've learned at home that they can take out. Across the board, if you look at all these different businesses, a fantastic way to scale is to build a platform. And people need, if you can get that formula right for your particular industry, it's going to drive success in a way that that most other businesses won't see.
Also making tough choices. Amrish, I think very interesting presentation, in the sense you were brutal about what you need to cut out, and I think you call them fancy projects of founders. You have to give us a few examples of some tough decisions you had to make in your journey.
I mean, one is making tough decisions every day in terms of his business and what you need to go through, right? I gave an example in terms of the credit card business which we had. I just want to highlight one thing. It's not that the fancy business is bad. It might be bad at that time. The time could be 2 years later. We've seen enough and more ideas which were way early, and they just failed. I met with somebody just now. You remember MCheck 2008? There was this beautiful ad which had Madhavan and Vidya Balan, where they were talking about, did you pay the bill? And Madhavan says, yeah, I paid the bill. 2008, mobile payments. Today, mobile payments is the biggest success story. They had a story in 2008. The company, I think, died by 2013 or 2014. So some of the ideas might just be ahead of its time, and then you've got to time this right. Another example was in 2016, we had lots of interest into going into contextual payments. So today, for example, what Meesho does, great idea, beautiful idea. We actually cut that business in citrus when we had in 2015, 2016, where we felt that the market was just not there. And I think we got it wrong that when the market arrived in 2017, 2018, we didn't go back to that market quick enough. But at that time, 2015, 2016, right choice to make, cut the business out. But in 2017, 2018, we should have gone to it earlier. So I just want to highlight the fact that it's a lot about timing in some cases. You just got to time it right. Got to look at your capital correctly and what you have in the bank so that you can experiment more.
But you spoke about, I think, a 5-year horizon for profitability.
Yeah.
I mean, you have big brands today which are very far from being profitable. Honestly, you're in a space which is highly competitive.
Yeah.
Yourself.
I'm going to call this out. There are quite a few payment companies in India which will never turn profitable.
Yeah.
Stop. Never. And it's a real issue. When you look at the financials, when you look at the business, Payments alone will never turn profitable in those situations. What will turn profitable is if you take the consumer from one business to another business and monetize him there. Unfortunately, payments is not a hook. I don't wake up in the morning saying, I'm going to use my X card today. Do we really care if we use a MasterCard or a Visa or a RuPay? We don't. Whatever comes closest to our hands and we go ahead and
So
make
what's
the
your hook
transaction.
then? What's your hook?
So hook has to be something different and payment comes along with it separate. So for example, if you look at businesses around the world which have successfully scaled profitable consumer payment business, the hook has invariably got to do with something else, which is everyday usage. So chat has been an everyday usage around which, so when you look at a WeChat, WePay has taken off very well because the hook was, WeChat. In the case of Alibaba and Alipay, the commerce which is happening, payments was stuck along with it. Payments became really big, but commerce was still the hook. And that's why you've actually never seen a taxi company actually doing extremely well with a payments business. Everybody talks about, Uber is going to come up with a wallet. Uber is not trying to get into payments. I kid you not, it's nothing to do with payments. What they're trying to do is they're trying to keep a higher take rate by making money on how they send money to the driver, which is different than owning a wallet. But around the world, a taxi service is not necessarily a good one because your affinity to taxi service is also not deep enough. So it has to be something which you're doing every day. And in a very repeat one, chat comes to me instantaneously.
So what about the big WhatsApp? If what is a bigger hook than that?
I agree. So
is that something on the horizon that you're looking at, which would change the game completely?
Look, from where I sit, I've never tried to own the consumer for a payment transaction. At best, I'm a payment facilitator. So as a payments facilitator, I want everybody to use payments out here. And if there is Google who's incentivizing the consumer to use digital payments, Paytm is doing it, I'm loving it. When it comes to WhatsApp, I think there's going to create a very big change where common consumers are going to use their UPI handles better and going to be able to transact a lot better. So I have to say, I'm really looking forward to WhatsApp Pay going live as long as, people get out of their way.
Okay. Rajesh, again, the challenge about diversifying versus profitability in the context of scale.
Yeah.
Now, you're in a space which is so vast and so undertapped. And even with the phenomenal growth that Blackbuck has had, and congratulations on that, it's still a very, very small proportion of that market. How do you ensure that you stay profitable and scale up? But if you don't diversify beyond a point, you're going to probably not reach as big a portion of that market as you need to.
Yeah. So I think, you put a question to Varun and me sort of almost similar, right? So if you look at it, whatever Varun is also doing in terms of scaling up multiple, and he didn't term it as businesses, it's something which you had to do to scale and win your mother market, right? So I think one is, actually, we don't have to worry about this question, we as a company, because globally, FTL line haul, which is the niche we are into, is about 4.5, 5 trillion. And in India, it's 90, right? And we are broadly, I think this quarter will be, grossing up more of an annual run rate of about close to billion kind of GMV kind of numbers, right? So I think less is more is one philosophy, right? And 90 billion market, I think, is enough, right? I think in India, right? I think that's point number one. Point number two is about, I think, profitability while we are scaling, because I think the one of the big questions we ask is that we're scaling well. I think, we would have done maybe 150, 200% growth year on year in the last year. And this is one tough question, which is the market is so big and we are so small. Why isn't that latent explosion happening, right? I think this is one of the very toughest problems to solve when you are at bigger scale, because there are a lot of winds in the market which always will be against you. And I think in the initial part, you need to create your business model in such a way that you're not taking against everything, right? So you're starting off small. And I think this is the biggest question which I personally have in my role to solve. Going down further micro into how do we ensure profitability while we are scaling, right? So today the way our business is that in various pockets, so as I was telling you, we are in 400 industrial hubs in India, which can be broadly clustered in like 60 hubs. In this top 20 hubs, like we make money, right? And in the top 20 hubs broadly is like giving us 70 to 75% of our business today, right? So, so we were earlier taking more like 18 months timeline to break even in a market. Now we have been able to push that down to as like low as between 9 to 12 months basis the conditions of the market. So I think it's always going to be the challenge between how fast do you scale, right? And there it's broadly the understanding between how much money you have and what do all the shareholders of the company and the board and you yourself, right, want to decide to go onto a path, right? So I think we've taken a path where we'll always keep making like, decent level of money at an operating level, right? And keep doubling down on growth as much as possible, right? So yeah, so I think it just varies between, depending on the markets you are.
So he's given a 5-year sort of a
Yeah.
timeline. He's like, in 5 years, if you're not making profits, get out of that business. Is that
No,
what
no,
you're saying?
No.
I'm talking about my my way of
Yeah.
thinking.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's an interesting number because I'm going to take that down the panel.
Yeah.
You
So I
know,
think
what's your number? Not just, I'm not talking about any one specific business, and I understand it will be different for different businesses and depending on the investment cycle, etc., etc. With all of those caveats, is saying 5 years you don't make it, then you have to think about planning.
Exactly. So I think it's basically the question for us is that if you want to grow exponentially, which means that you need to keep doing 150 to 200% kind of an year-on-year growth the next 5 years, then you can't chase PAT profitability. If you can satisfy, you can say that okay, as a bunch, let's be fine with 40% year-on-year growth. I think profitability for us is like 18 months away. Right? And if we are okay with like, fine, we don't need profitability, we need to chase PAT profitability, that's 6 months away.
Okay.
So that's how it works, right? So, jo chahiye wo de denge. Right? As in, essentially, what needs to be, where do you want to get to? You need to completely steer the ship out because you build a DNA which is chasing growth. That DNA cannot deliver profitability.
So the sense of not scaling just for the sake of scaling, with a clear. Do you have a number in terms of profitability? And of course, very interesting in the Indian context where we're right now seeing an explosion of the whole startup space, and profitability is not necessarily on top of everyone's list.
Yeah, I have a very structured view on this. I sold my company to private equity last year, and then I've bought 3 companies in the last 6 months. So I spent a lot of time looking at these exact equations. In Silicon Valley, the way of valuing a company is what's called the rule of 40. Have you heard of the rule of 40 before? So the rule of 40 is you take your percentage year-to-year growth plus your EBITDA percentage, and if that number equals 40, you're a high-value company. So if you grew last year 20% year-to-year and you delivered 20% EBITDA profitability, your 20 plus 20 equals 40. 10% growth, 30% EBITDA, 30% growth, 10% EBITDA, even 50% growth, negative 10% EBITDA, you're a high-value company. And that's a very, very, very common way of valuing companies today. And 5 years ago, it was the rule of 30. And of course, investors are now cranking it up and saying they want to see more from the companies that they invest in. So now it's the rule of 40. And that's how I value companies today as I go out and do my acquisitions itself.
Yeah, but from a founder perspective, since Vishal, why don't you come in here? Sometimes do you have to choose between scale and profitability and draw the line somewhere?
So I would say a lot of this is the flavor of the year, right? I mean, last year, till everybody was talking about scale and nobody wanted to worry about profitability. And in our board, and largely boards were like, listen, we know we can get profitability whenever we want.
Yeah.
Let us chase scale. But now, everybody's saying, oh, we want to see gross margins and net margins. So I think
I wonder what's happened this year in the economy too.
Yeah. So the problem really is that as an entrepreneur, you are, chewing glass, watching the abyss, and you don't know what's going to happen in the environment around.
Yeah.
So unfortunately, you have to react to the environment. When everybody's chasing scale and you are chasing profitability, you may not be there because, having profitability with no scale is of no use. But at the same time, it's the flip side. So all I can say is you need to be flexible. And I think one thing we did, which was very clear, so I think there's a big shift which happened in our entire mind when we moved from what I call hustling to scaling. Hustling, according to me, is what I call carpet bombing. It's about trying everything. Everyone is trying everything and we don't know what's going to work. And that's extremely, it uses a lot of cash because you don't know, there is no ROI. You're doing 25 things. But this year, we focused on what I call surgical strikes. So we said, we are going to measure everything. We're going to have a goal. And in fact, I was very inspired with John Doerr's book on OKRs. And I would recommend anybody who's thinking of scaling to read that book and, if possible, implement OKRs. So our entire company went on an OKR system because at scale, when you have a larger team, you need to make sure everybody is aiming at that 1 or 2 metrics. And what happens when you are scaling is it's very easy for some people to be pushing the bus on this side, some people to push the bus on this side, and some people pushing another bus altogether. So aligning the entire organization to scale is very important. And that comes by having data-driven, and I think data is what is really flowing. And last thing, I think email is the biggest curse for companies.
Email.
Email.
You spend your day going through mails.
People can just spend days and hours on CCs and threads.
I agree. Yeah.
So we removed actually email. There's no email communication internally at all.
Wow.
We are all on WhatsApp groups and Slack. Email is only external communication. And what we do, something interestingly, is we have a daily huddle. So we figured out that there is this conference dialing in, and about 10 of our top management team members at 9:30, there is a call which dials everybody in. And you don't need to dial, put any number. And then we have a 20-minute call. Everybody updates each other. And we then have a meeting every Monday. So I think we can't even afford to wait for 1 week to get updated on what's happening. So there is a daily huddle. Of course, some people can miss it who are traveling. But you need to put extreme discipline for scaling up. Because the same strategy you adopted while hustling is not going to work while scaling.
Yeah.
You know what I heard that AWS has done? Amazon and AWS specifically have got rid of PowerPoint in meetings.
Absolutely.
PowerPoint is not allowed.
So they do these very interesting documents which they call FAQs and
the briefing docs.
Yeah. We've been following that too. Yeah.
We're short on time, and I want to get some questions in from the audience as well. So hopefully we can extend a bit. But just one more question, and I'll come to you with that, Varun. It's kind of related. We're talking in this session about scaling, but at what point does a company, a founder, an entrepreneur decide this is my ceiling? I'm happy to scale, but this is my right equation. I've got my profitability, I've got my goals. And now I just want to focus on steadying the ship and running it. You've gone from 7,000 to 7.5 lakh per month as users. Is there a mental point which you say, okay, this is the end goal?
I think that question is different for everyone, and maybe most strongly linked to why you started the business in the first place, and what do you want to do in your life. I think that will, for every individual, decide the journey every few years. And for us, we started the business with a clear goal that we want to completely change the way all of India consumes personal and home care services. So we're very, very far from being satisfied. In fact, along the way, we realized that this problem is not only in India, but all over the world. So we, in fact, expanded our view of what we want to do to say we want to do this worldwide now.
Yes.
And we want to do this at least for the next 15, 20 years of our life, if not more. So I think, speaking of me and my co-founders, there's no end point, because that's how we look at the world, and this is what we want to do.
Lifestyle business or growth business?
Yeah, I was just going to say that.
If you're not growing, you're dying in my world.
Yeah, I mean, we're a very small part of what we want to be.
Yeah.
And what we want to be is very clear. That's why you keep on going. And I think to each his own, right? If other people have started a business to build a successful, healthy business with, say, a certain amount of profits in 5-10 years, and after that go do something else in life because they have other goals to seek as well, then there's no right or wrong answer.
Yeah, absolutely.
The fun factor. If it's not fun anymore, then you probably shouldn't be doing it.
Yeah, or if you basically realize, that there are other things that I always wanted to do.
What's the fun fact in chewing glass and staring into the abyss?
That is the
You
fun.
should try it.
That's the roller coaster.
It's good, actually.
You live off that adrenaline, right? I mean,
And
that's
imagine it to be sugar.
which will
Sugar
still keep
flavored
you
glass.
healthy. Sugar-free sugar. All right, I think couple of questions. Can we take a couple of questions? One question. We have time for one question. Yeah, I have one there. Yes, I think they'll get a mic to you.
Thank you everyone for having such an insightful discussion. My question is to specifically Clint or Oram sir. You must have seen the ecosystem or startup ecosystem of India, and you must have been involved in the startup ecosystem of Silicon Valley. And I occasionally hear that in Silicon Valley, that's where the innovation occurs, and we are just having a service-based industry in India. So what are your comments on it? Just compare what exactly India is and America is, and does the startup actually have that much opportunities or sufficient amount of opportunities in India as compared to US?
Good one.
The world is flat. I'm seeing the startup energy all over the world. I have the opportunity to work with companies in over 80 different countries. And what I'm seeing in India, I'm also seeing in Portugal, I'm also seeing in the Ukraine, I'm seeing in Romania, I'm seeing in the Philippines. I think the dominance of Silicon Valley in business is rapidly declining. People are leaving California right and left, and we're seeing fantastic energy like we are here today. I think you guys have got the beginning of something absolutely fantastic, and probably some of the most innovative software that I've ever seen is coming out of India every day. So please don't think of yourself as less than Silicon Valley, because you're not at all.
That's lovely to hear. Thank you.
Right. Thank you. I think the time's up. Thank you, everyone.